Hey guys, Charles Walker here. So in this video, what I want to talk about is a campaign diaries video, because last few videos, they've been topics that were, I guess, hot takes, quote unquote. I don't know what even constitutes a hot take anymore, but it was some kind of controversial topics, which all have positive receptions. I'm happy with the conversations that spawned from it, but I want to take a step back and do a little more simpler video this time, and that's just going to be simply talking about my homebrew campaign. And I get a lot of people message me asking me what I recommend doing in a homebrew campaign, what it's like, what goes into it, and what it really takes to make their own. So I wanted to talk about mine and what I learned, because a few weeks ago I ended my 3-year running homebrew campaign, which lasted from levels 1 to 16. Whew, that was crazy. That's all I got to say about it. It was absolutely insane, and I love the group so much, and I had all of them say it was the favorite campaign they've ever been in, and that meant so much to me. I loved it. So, without further ado, let's get into the video. So, talking about it, the world itself, I simply called it the World of I got inspiration from it. It was an old city in real old times. I can't even remember. That was a few years ago when I had that class, and I was, instead of taking notes in history, I was writing down this campaign idea I had. Because at the time, I'm still a huge fan of One Piece, and I was playing the Witcher games, and I was in Skellige, and I was really inspired by Skellige. I thought it was such a cool setting, and I wanted something that kind of had a similar feel to it, where one thing I thought Witcher and One Piece did really well is there was these little islands or territories you were in, and all of them had their own isolated problems, but all of them built up into the overall plot. And I think One Piece does that incredibly well. All the individual islands feel like their own adventure. All the settings are so diverse, and I like that. So I wanted a setting like that, where it's a high seas campaign, where there's a lot of islands involved, and all of them have their own problems, but there is one overarching story. So it started out with, how do I do that? So I had this idea of, there is these countries that have been at war for a long time. There's the Merchant Kingdom of Highwind. There is the Southern Islands, which is an archipelago that has been mostly home to Viking territory, but the king that recently took over has been trying to do for more peaceful negotiations once he realizes all this years of war is not leading to anywhere. Then there is Song of the Sea, an artificial island made of wood built along a bunch of rocks and coral amongst the northern part of the sea, and essentially a prince from Song of the Sea and a princess from the Southern Islands fell in love, and they saw this as an opportunity to reconcile it all and try and make peace between 3 islands, with Highwind orchestrating the wedding, and that's how they fit in. So that was the plan. Get them married and use that as a political device for get all the countries, territories, and lords all involved in the same thing. Obviously, there was some mixed feelings about it. So that is where the party came in. The party was all recruited to do an escort mission to escort this princess from point A to point B. Not your standard escort mission. It's a Viking princess. She was awesome. And a lot of characters really liked her. And that is what really spawned it. When they escorted to the wedding, everything was going fine. Then the wedding itself was attacked by a terrorist group that seemed to be trying to break up the peace between the islands. And things didn't go good. They weren't able to catch the terrorist, and that led to the government official rounding up the party and under the table hiring them to figure out what's going on, because currently he didn't know who to trust with this new government, so he wanted some people he thought he could trust. And that is what happened. And he trusted a party because he served with them and fought with a few of them, so that's why he handpicked this group. And he wanted to get some people that were on the outside, didn't have any ties to it or any motivations. So this party, their entire goal was to travel from every country and go into the individual affairs of each one and try and find out who might have been tied to this, what they would gain from it, and everything involved in it. And started unveiling this huge conspiracy. Like, I tried to take that aspect of One Piece that I love, and it's amazing foreshadowing. One Piece has some of the greatest foreshadowing ever, in my opinion, of they will vaguely mention one character, like the beginning of the story, then a few chapters or arcs later, they are the biggest character in the story and are so important. And that I thought was cool. So I wanted to have that. I set a cast of NPCs. All of them had their own roles in the world, and all of them were going to come into play later on. Because it was a lot of making alliances and possibly ruining some alliances. So yeah. So eventually, it did have to come to an end, and that hurt me because it just got to the point where there's nothing more they could do because the conspiracy was huge. Because, oh gosh, what all was it? It's hard to summarize a whole 3-year campaign into one video. It really is. Because they had various adventures. There was also side missions and all sorts of stuff. But to go over what really happened, essentially in the end, the main plot was Warforged were currently being made in the background by one of the villains who sold his soul to a pit fiend to get this otherworldly knowledge on how to make machines. And he currently made this ginormous spider that was supposed to be this ultimate creature in the end that was he's going to use to basically rule everything under an iron fist. And that was the final boss, that giant iron spider. Because even though they're level 16, the party just got so strong, I could hardly set anything against them, like, especially the barbarian. The barbarian was nearly unstoppable. But in the end, they defeated it. All the characters settled down under this new government. One opened a tavern, the other one just kept traveling the world. The other one made this super vigilante group to keep on dealing out justice. The barbarian got married and became the head of his tribe. The ranger, he kept on traveling the world as well. The rogue, she finally settled down and had a happy life and helped build her country back up. And that is about it, with the sorceress finally opening a tavern for adventurers. And yeah, it was such a great group. I loved them. And so now on to the things I learned that I wish I knew this at day one and that I recommend to other people. So one, if you're going to run a long-running campaign, someone may leave the group, and that's fine. Because I wanted to say that because that hurt me a bit, because it started with 6 people and 2 people dropped out, and we had to get another 2 people in to hold up where they were leaving out. And I'm someone who really likes to tie their story into the main overarching story, so that kind of sucked when they left. But the ranger, the one I mentioned, he came back for the final mission, so it was 7 people versus the spider, and it was awesome. I really enjoyed it. And I liked that so much that, I thought it was a cool in my head, but I liked that I also made it to where all their choices and all the alliances they made in the end mattered, because it was a giant robot, so they needed help. So pretty much nearly every NPC that they befriended over the course of the story showed back up in some way or another to help them fight. And yeah, that's what I did. And to explain it, I basically had one round that was kind of like a lair action, where I called it the NPC action, and it was basically if they would all do like one group action. If there were some healers, they do all one group heal, or if there was some range, they would do like all one big range attack. And I just kind of boiled it down to a few actions so it wouldn't be a million pieces on the board. And so on to what I was originally saying. I really like this group. I'm sorry, it's kind of going to a ramble. And if they leave, that's okay. Don't think it's the end of the world. Though I will say you may want to be careful about when it comes to how you do the story, because I did my mistake of making them too crucial to the story. And I feel like they should be crucial to the story, get me wrong, but if them leaving completely derails your story, I feel like that's something you may want to be wary of, unless they're guaranteed to always be there, because that could be a problem. It's because that happened to me, where one of the characters, like the entire second arc, was centered around his home island, and his work schedule changed. He couldn't be there for months, so that was awkward. So I wanted to say, hey, just be careful on that. It is great, and it's so engaging for the players to actually feel like their story they helped come up with matters, because that's great when you're just telling the story together and coming up with this lore for them together. I like that. I like it when DMs do that to me, and I feel like I got a lot of engagement from my players when I did that. So that's something to recommend. Another thing I want to recommend is be careful about Unearthed Arcana. And when I say that, there's nothing wrong with Unearthed Arcana inherently, but when they put some stuff out, D&D is a big game, so there is ways to exploit mechanics and such. Be careful. So the monk in the game, he's someone I forgot to mention. Oh, he was the one with the vigilante group, but I didn't mention him. So the monk, he was a way of tranquility monk, and what they can do is they have the paladins lay on hands, but I feel like the drawback to lay on hands is it takes an action to use it. They could use it part of their flurry of blows. So as a bonus action, they could just pop their health up so many times. So one-on-one combat, they are nearly just unstoppable if you build them well enough. And he was. And Tranquility Monk had a few other abilities that were absolutely insane. So I realized that I needed to really look over Unearthed Arcana really well before I gave it to him. And it's playtest material, so if someone's wanting to give you Unearthed Arcana for a long-running campaign, I say don't be afraid of saying, hey, could we work on this or dial this back a bit? Because that's something I pretty much had to do with the Artificer, because the original Artificer basically got a free sneak attack. It was insane. But yeah, that's something I learned, and if I could go back, I would totally nerf that lay on hands just slightly, because god dang, he was unstoppable 1v1. And next thing I learned that I wish I could have done is definitely make an entire list of your NPCs, because my notes were not organized at all, and oh my gosh, it was so hard to find things I needed sometimes. If you're going to do that, definitely have a notebook set aside for that, because I had foolish me started with one notebook that had basically all the combat notes and all of the NPC notes as well, and I lost a lot of stuff, and I know better now. I do. And next thing I wanted to say is just have fun, and when you're running a long-running campaign, make sure it's something you're into and something the party's into, because you're going to be there a while, so just make sure you find ways to keep things fresh so they don't get bored. And I'm not saying what you come up with is boring, but if you're someone who likes changing settings and stuff, you definitely may want to think of ways to keep things fresh for the party. And it's not just the same setting over and over again, because if you get bored of it as well, that's not going to be fun for you running the game, and it'll reflect on the players as well. It's something I learned that one of my players set me aside one time when I was getting aggravated because I felt like I was not able to make a combat that was good for the party, because they were really strong. One of the players set me aside and said, hey, is this fun for you? And I said, well, yeah, I guess. And he said, no, it should be fun. And if it's not, we're not having fun. So come on, buddy. And I realized he was right. And it took me a lot of work, but I got really good at combat. But just, as I said, don't be afraid to change things and work things around and work with your party. And that's all I had to say with that, but I definitely recommend running a homebrew setting, especially if you really like writing and coming up with stuff. It's really rewarding to me. I like the book campaigns all right, but making a homebrew game is one of the most satisfying things for me. I love it. Currently, I've run 3 homebrew campaigns, technically 3, because one of them was 6 sessions, but it was still a little mini campaign I came up with, and it was a lot of fun. So I definitely recommend, feel free to write your own and have fun with it. It's a lot of work, but to me, it's well rewarding, and it's unique to your players, and I like that. So that's what I recommend, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. You want to hear any more stories of my campaigns, I can have some more in-depth stories if y'all like. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and also, if you didn't see my last video, so I changed my plans for a 1,000 subscriber special. My plan is to eat an entire pack of the spicy ramen from some spicy ramen challenge my wife told me about, and talk about Fire Genasi character ideas. So you want to see me suffer? Help me reach 1,000 subscribers. Share this to your gamer group, whatever. Yeah. So thank you guys. We're still growing. We'll see how far we can go with this. Hope you guys have a great day. I will see y'all in the next video. Bye.